Welcome back, Patriots, for another episode of the Ball Brad Show. It is officially Hump Day, Wednesday, September 18th. We are just that much closer to the upcoming election, folks. It's only a matter of a month and a half, a few weeks here and there, and we got to get out and vote more than ever, folks. They want to take our president down, meaning Mr. 45, hopefully Mr. 47, Donald J. Trump. We had a lot of news to cover today. First, Kamala Harris had one of her worst interviews. We got pagers blowing up terrorists. We got freaking Tim Walz out there. We got Donald Trump hitting the airwaves as well. We got all sorts of stuff for you, folks. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. We did have a technical difficulty at the beginning. It's just one of those things that I can't control. The camera wasn't linking correctly with the computer, which does tend to happen. And so we had to do a full system reboot. But luckily, we're back and bigly ready to go. Let's jump right in the news, folks. Let's not even cut around any corners today. We have over, it's actually way more than this. We're being reported about over 4,000 now. 4,000 dead or injured pagers used by Hezbollah, and they exploded on these people's bodies. And these people, I mean, terrorists. So thousands of pagers, like over 4,000 by Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon exploded all at the same time. It's like something out of Hollywood. In their hands and pockets and in their underwear. The Lebanese health minister said that more than 2,700, like I said, the latest report is now over 4,000, were injured, 200 plus of whom are in critical condition, and at least 8 people were killed. Now, the reason why they were using these pagers is because they didn't want to be detected through cell phones, because they know Eagle Eye was listening in. And so the initial reporting was that these pagers were intercepted from Taiwan, and now Taiwan's coming out and saying, well, that's not technically true, that these originated in Hungary and then possibly went to Taiwan and were intercepted and then swapped out with a little switcheroo of explosives and then given to a bunch of terrorists. So it's always a good day when we hear about the good guys defeating the bad guys, but I'm sure there'll be some protesters out there in some sort of university from the Democrats and the progressive left chanting for the death of the Jews, genocide, intifada, all that stuff, upset the fact that a bunch of terrorists got exploded. But they're never upset when terrorists, explode their vests on a bunch of innocent people. We never see them protesting that, do we, folks? No, you never see it, which is the oddest thing to me, the fact that the suicide vests or bombers that blew themselves up for decades, we never saw a massive sit-in, right, at these universities. We never saw a massive protest or march on behalf of the terrible things that these terrorists are doing. It's a really odd thing to me that you never see things like that. We also have a report here before we get into the main news today. Report shows a decrease in LGBTQ characters represented in films. Now, I would imagine this is probably because people are tired of having this stuff shoved down their throats. I got no qualms with somebody being gay or lesbian or bi or trans or queer. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to be left alone. I just want you to leave the kids alone. I don't want you trans in the kids. If that's something they decide that they want to be when they're turned 18, if you want to lop off your genitals at 18 as an adult, that's on you. I wish and seek you help. I don't think you should be taking and removing off viable body parts, but it's not my life. It's not my decision. So if somebody wants to be trans, if somebody is gay or lesbian or bi or whatever, that's on them. I'm liberal about this. I just want to be left alone. You want to have your parades? Have your parades. Just, do it every now and then so you're not hindering traffic in the same way I say that for anybody. Anybody doing anything. Doesn't matter what you are. But again, we're just tired of having it shoved down our throats. So you have, according to this advocacy group, this Studio Responsibility Index, the study, which tracks the quantity, quality, and diversity, who knew there was such a thing, of characters in movies, found that of the 256 films in 2023, 70 contained an LGBTQ plus character. Their report bemoaned that this was down from the 100 characters that appeared in the 350 films. Oh, goodness. Oh, well, it's terrible. Again, because nobody's showing up to the movies anymore because they don't want to see this stuff crammed down their throats left and right. We're kind of tired of it. It kind of gets exhausting. In the same way, have you noticed that even the superhero films aren't doing so hot? Because it does get exhausting after a while of seeing the same thing over and over and over again with no new spins. Hollywood is out of ideas. And frankly, they're almost out of money as well. Studios are not doing so hot, folks. And one of the reasons is because they keep pushing this type of agenda, an agenda that we don't care much about and don't want to hear about consistently. Now, the big news that I want to get to from yesterday is not just the White House press briefing, because there was a mega clip that went viral yesterday, and it plays into what we talked about yesterday as well, where the mainstream media keeps throwing out the word threat. And we spent legitimately an hour showing clip after clip after clip after clip after clip of the media saying he's a threat to democracy. He's a threat to the country. He needs to be removed. He needs to be eliminated. He's going to throw the Constitution in the trash. All these things. So this clip here, Jean-Pierre goes up against Peter Doocy. And she defends calling Trump a threat. Now, you might be thinking, isn't this the administration that just told us like the other week, or should I say other month, because it was literally only like a couple months ago that Donald Trump was shot in the head. Well, isn't this the same administration that says we need to tone down the rhetoric? Like Donald Trump even agreed, like, hey, the rhetoric needs to come down, and Joe Biden sat there on the podium, we need to tone down the rhetoric. She doesn't care. No, folks, none of them care about making sure they tone down the rhetoric. None of them care about actually making sure that they have sensible words coming out of their mouth. Here we go.
Only 2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it, because American people are watching. And to say that from an administration who has consistently condemned political violence.
No, you haven't. We've had to actually force you to sit there and condemn it. Like the whole idea that they're sitting there going after the Supreme Court judges. Like they were going out there. Lady, it's your own party that stood out there. Maxine Waters, we just showed the tape yesterday saying, go after your political opponents. Go after conservative Republicans in the streets, the gas stations, the restaurants, everywhere in public. Don't give me this.
From an administration where the president called the former president and was grateful that he was okay. From an administration who has called out January 6th, called out the attack of Paul Pelosi, called out.
She's going to equate Paul Pelosi to January 6th. These people are insane, man. These people, that's the reason why they have to throw in Paul Pelosi is because it's mainly Democrats that do this type of work. It's mainly Democrats that perform assassinations if you look throughout United States history. Maybe even human history. Shit, I don't know.
And said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident. And now for you to make that kind of comment in your question.
So manipulative.
Because your question involved a comment and a statement. And, it is, that is also incredibly dangerous. When we have been very clear in condemning political violence from here. What I have said about the president, the former president, about January 6th is facts.
No, it's not.
You all have reported. It is fact.
No, it's not.
When you have a former president who basically says that the election wasn't, the results of the election were not the results of the election.
Like you guys did in 2016 with Hillary Clinton and prior. Weird. Because there's been multiple elections where you didn't think were legitimate. It's actually mostly Democrats throughout, again, our history that sat there and said that these elections aren't legitimate. It's odd to me. Again, Republicans do it too. I'm not ousting them. Again, there's a hierarchy of who's done it more. It's Democrats.
When dozens of more than 60 Republican judges said that it was a free and fair election.
Didn't we just report the fact that there was people on Nevada's voter registration rolls that were voting from properties that physically didn't exist. People were voting from locations where they actually weren't living at anymore. There was people voting from Nevada, but were living in a different state during the election. Weren't there illegal immigrants that were on the voter registration rolls that were voting that we know about? And that Texas, for example, was removing them from the voter registration rolls. We'll have this story later today. There was just like thousands of people that were registered to vote without even proof of citizenship, but we're told none of this is happening, you guys. There was a person that was just pleaded guilty to voting in the 2016 and 2020 election who was an illegal immigrant. Freest and fairest election, folks. No evidence. All cheap fakes, deep fakes. It's like, come on, lady. We showed a study where 17% of people, if they knew about the Hunter Biden laptop, would have never voted for Joe Biden. He would never be sitting in the Oval Office right now. They would have at least voted for Trump or not voted for him at all. You just swung the entire election. It wasn't the freest and fairest election, lady. You sat there and lied and used our intelligence apparatus to sit there and cover up information. Don't give me this crap that it was the fairest and freest election. Bullshit.
More than 60 said it was indeed a free and fair election. You had more than 2,000 people who were told to go to the Capitol. It was one of the darkest days of our democracy. One of the darkest days.
No, it wasn't. It was a bad day, but it wasn't one of the darkest days. Give me a break.
There were people law enforcement officers who died because of what happened at the Capitol.
Yeah, we don't know that. Even the medical examiner came out and said, yeah, this wasn't the cause from the January 6th. But this is what they do. They promulgate lies, right? She goes, this is just a fact. This is just a fact. No, almost everything you said, lady, as of right now is not a fact. But it is a fact that you keep using a threat to democracy along with all your Democrat friends, which we showed an hour-long show of yesterday. But no conversation about that. But she's going to continue to promulgate January 6th. It's a remarkable thing. Remarkable thing.
And they were there because the former president told them to go there. I mean, I don't know if that's not a threat in our democracy when it was one of the darkest days of our democracy. January 6th, one of the darkest days.
Bro, he goes, hey, don't you think he should use a different word than threat because he just had 2 assassination attempts? By the way, wait till I get to it. Did you know there's a 3rd assassination attempt? Put an N in the chat or a Y in the chat if you knew there was a 3rd assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life, because I'm about to break that today as well. Nobody's talking about it. Oh, we got a show for y'all today. Buckle up, folks.
And so we have been very clear from here. Now, we can have a disagreement on policies. We can, on issues. That is what we should do. It is important to have those disagreements. It is welcome to have those disagreements on the economy, on healthcare, on foreign policy. But when you start bringing political rhetoric, that is not okay. And that's what you've heard from us, too. You've heard of differences on policies.
Gaslighting us.
But to your point, there are people watching at home who might miss the part where you say, let's lower the temperature, and there are mentally unstable people who are attempting to kill political candidates, attempting to kill Donald Trump, and they are still hearing this White House refer to him as a threat. Is there no concern that people are taking that literally?
We're using examples. We're not just saying that just to say it. January 6th, Peter. January 6th.
Yo, this is crazy.
January 6th. How many times do we have to? January 6th, 2021. That is a fact. What was reported that happened on that day by some of your colleagues. I mean, and we have at the same time denounced political violence over and over, political rhetoric over and over again.
And political rhetoric? Lady, in the same 4 minutes, you've already called him a threat multiple times. And then you're going to sit there, we need to sit there and fix the political rhetoric. What?
Over and over again. But I know your focus has to be on this side of the house. It can't be on your side of the house. I get that.
What the fuck?
But we also have to be careful on how you're asking me these questions. People are watching, and is what you are saying.
Dude, this is so manipulative. It is head spinning. This is like Kamala Harris manipulative. This is this. Oh, dude, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna keep it together for you folks, but I'm gonna lose it.
About us raising political violence, right? Whatever, however you just formulated it, this is an administration that has denounced and condemned any type of political rhetoric or violence. It is the reason why this president decided to run in.
Ducey, this is where you sit there and you start listing everything we listed out yesterday. Over 50 times the Democrat Party has called him a threat. This is where you start calling her out, Joe Biden. Kamala Harris, you start reading quotes left and right. Just all the quotes.
2020. That is why the president decided to come back.
Why?
He believed that it is important to save the soul of America, of our nation, and he believed it was important that we continue to fight for our democracy, fight for our freedom. That's what you see from this administration. I'm moving.
Dude, can you guys, I mean, I'm sure you can believe it, right? I'm sure you can actually believe it that, she's going to sit there and say, oh, well, we need to sit there and, call out political violence, but we also need to sit there and call out political rhetoric. Oh, by the way, did I mention Donald Trump's a threat to the country because of January 6th? Did I mention that he's a threat to our country? Did I mention that he's a threat to this or that? Unbelievable stuff, folks. Unbelievable stuff. Yes, I kind of led you all on just a wee bit regarding another assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life. I might have led you on just a teensy bit, and what I mean by that is there was an individual who pleaded guilty to an assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life, folks. Yes, it was a Pakistani national. And I'm going to throw this out there because he pleads not guilty, rather, forgive me, in an alleged plot to kill Donald Trump. So we have another one. And the reason why I want to show you this yesterday is because we all highlighted in the chat that second attempt, right? You had the first one in Butler, Pennsylvania. Then you had the second one at the golf course just the other day. And we said, well, those are the ones we know about. Could there be more? Yes. Yes, there in fact is, my friends. We have the receipts, baby. You're damn right we do. A Pakistani national with ties to Iran pleaded not guilty on Monday to charges related to an Iranian plot to assassinate former President Donald Trump. Ooh, interesting. A federal judge in Brooklyn ordered this individual detained pending trial on Monday hearing in which this individual pleaded not guilty to charges on attempting to commit an act of terrorism, transcending national boundaries and taking part in a murder for hire plot. This individual pleaded not guilty the same day that another man, weird how this was not over all. Look at everyone. Did anybody know about this? Yes in chat, Y in chat, and in chat for no. Did anybody else know about this? That there was a guy the same day that another man suspected of targeting Donald Trump's assassination appeared in federal court for a plot to commit an assassination on Donald Trump. That man who was arrested shortly after allegedly fleeing from a sniper spot at Trump International Golf Course, was arraigned on charges of possessing a firearm as a convicted felon and possessing a firearm with an obliterated serial number. Everybody's saying no. Didn't think so because the media doesn't want you to know. This dangerous murder for hire plot was allegedly orchestrated by a Pakistani national with close ties to Iran and is straight out of the Iranian regime's playbook. FBI Director Christopher Wray said last week a foreign-directed plot to kill a public official or any U.S. citizen is a serious threat to our national security. Well, no shit. And will be met with the full might and resources of the FBI. Protecting Americans from terrorists remains our highest priority. Now, we'll get to that in just one moment because I have another clip talking about the idea that it's going to be difficult to charge the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. This individual arrived in the U.S. in April, planning to orchestrate a plot to kill Trump, according to prosecutors. Merchant, who's the individual, allegedly outlined the plan with someone soon after believing that the person could help him carry it out. That person later reported Merchant's behavior to the FBI and became a confidential source. In June, allegedly, he met with the men he believed to be hitmen, but who were actually U.S. law enforcement, officials. The Pakistani paid the men $5,000 in advance to kill Donald Trump. Everybody's writing no's in chat. Some of you are writing yes, but by far, I only see one yes. So I want to make sure, this is why you show up to the show, right? This is why we all show up, because we sit there and bring you the news. So there was another plot on Donald Trump's life that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about. And if this is going on, can you imagine how many other plots are out there? How many other Iranians or Pakistanis or whoever the hell else is coming in this country illegally is going to try to do to harm Donald Trump? There's a lot of them, folks. There's a lot of them. And we'll make sure we bring you up to date on everything you need to know about regarding that. Now, I want to find that clip that I had queued up for all of you about the second assassination attempt, on how it might be difficult to charge this individual against Trump. Here we go.
What about, you know, I've talked about motive in the past and how that plays a part or doesn't in any kind of future prosecutions. The fact that he had those two backpacks, those ceramic tiles in between the long weapon, and then the GoPro that was already put on to that fence, what does that tell you, and does that have any weight future going?
Yeah, you could charge someone with various crimes, perhaps an attempted murder, without having a shot fired. If you've gone through the planning and have done something substantially to effectuate that, so you don't have to have a shot fired. But because the former president was so far away, 300 to 500 yards away on a different hole, I think it's going to be tough to charge him with a crime against Trump. Much easier to charge him with a crime against a Secret Service agent who apparently saw the rifle pointed at him. That's the key witness here, and that would be perhaps the most serious charge.
Dave Barenberg, thank you very much.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? You really do try to make sense of all this stuff, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult because people are so crazy. So many people are off their rockers. They're not with us. They're confused. They're demented. Well, let's get into a little bit of, I almost said Hillary Clinton's interview, but it's Kamala Harris. I guess there's not too much of a difference, except Kamala Harris is more psycho, more crazy, more corrupt, more manipulated, and or manipulative than anything. So here's a Kamala Harris incoherently giving a filibuster when asked about her past support of multi-trillion-dollar reparations plan. Folks, it's a good damn question.
Would you, as president, take executive action to create this commission, or do you believe that it should happen in Congress?
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, Sheila Jackson Lee, she was an extraordinary leader who we just recently lost, and she was a friend and a real champion for so many issues. So I feel compelled to say that about her. On the issue of what we need to do going forward, look, first of all, we just need to speak truth about history, in spite of the fact that some people would try and erase history.
Meaning the Democrat Party legitimately uses the Howard Zinn revisionist history to try and teach our youth about history so they can obfuscate the fact that Democrat Party has been evil. Party of the Klan, party of slavery, party of anti-civil rights, party of abortions, all those things. Doesn't want to talk about it, though. But remember, when they teach the North versus South, they never mention the fact that it's the Republican North versus Democratic South.
And try and teach our children otherwise. We need to speak truth about the generational impact of our history, in terms of the generational impact of slavery, the generational impact of redlining, of Jim Crow law. I could go on and on and on. These are facts that have had impact. And
it's funny because when you look at all the different ethnicities and races that have been impacted in some way, shape, or form, it's weird because Asians are outperforming whites, blacks, and Hispanics. Even if you look within the black community, we talk all about this in my book. Really, I mean, I think this one chapter talking about discriminations, the disparities in my book is one of the best chapters you will read and be, I guess, more knowledgeable in terms of different racial ethnicities, in terms of their household income. Black people are worse off today than they were before the 1960s. They're worse off today. So how does that make any sense? How is it that the single fatherhood rate, or motherhood, however you want to phrase it, in the black community went from 20% to 70% in the same span that we have the implementation of the civil rights movement? It doesn't make any sense if you look at it. It has everything to do with culture. It has nothing to do with race. The reason why I say it has everything to do with culture is because there are cultures that overlap one another. the same thing that black people deal with in a certain type of culture is the same thing that white people deal with in a certain type of culture, is the same way that Asians and Hispanics deal with. And if you actually look at the population of different types of blacks, they all outcompete each other in some way, shape, or form. If you look at Indian Americans who have had their struggles as well, they're also outcompeting whites and blacks. But it's always about black people or Hispanic people or some sort of marginalized group or minority out there, rather than looking at there are some minority groups out there that are actually outperforming a lot of, if not every other group out there. So it's just odd to me that we really hyper focus on this. And I want to point out the fact too, it only takes one generation, meaning your children, to sit there and fork your family tree. It takes, I'm going to say this again, it is a fact. Statistically, it only takes one generation to fork your family tree. Somebody in that lineage has to sacrifice something for the betterment of your family.
We need to speak truth about it. And we need to speak truth about it in a way that is about deriving solutions. And frankly, I think that we, and part of that is studying it to figure out exactly what we need to do. But part of what we can do right now is, for example, what I'm talking about in terms of building an opportunity economy, which is...
Somebody left me a comment yesterday. I'm not even going to let her finish. She just rambles. Like I said, it's a filibuster. It goes on for like another 3 minutes, you guys. I'm not answering anything, by the way. Somebody wrote in the live chat yesterday, we already are in an opportunity economy. It's called capitalism, is what it's called, Kamala. It's called capitalism, but she doesn't want that. It's funny because she's going to talk about this opportunity economy, opportunity for people to take money out of your hard-earned work ethic and you're just out of your wallet and give it to other people. That's called Marxism. And by the way, how do we know that? Well, that's literally what they're talking about. They're talking about reparations. You know, you never owned slaves. Your family might have way back in the past, many generations ago, but a lot of black people never even went through slavery. They're never even descendants of slaves, but yet they sit there and are asking for reparations. It's a head spinning thing. We've done a lot of videos on reparations. So you have to pay for the injustices of somebody else's crimes that were committed in the past, regardless of if they were evil or not evil. Obviously, slavery is evil. Obviously, Jim Crow laws were evil. Obviously, redlining is evil. 100% agree. Obviously, there is generational problems that sit there and evolve and snowball from those evils that were committed in the past. But somebody today shouldn't have to pay for the injustices of somebody's actions in the past. The reason why is, where does that stop? Everybody in some sort of human history has had injustices placed upon them because of their race and ethnicity. Everybody, by the way. And remember, it wasn't just blacks that were slaves. There was also white people that were slaves. So should we look at the lineage of white people that were slaves in the past and also give them reparations? Because I haven't seen a single document out there that lists white people or other ethnicities from various places around the world that were sold off into slavery by other black people and other ethnicities that overlap the same ethnicity of those that were the slaves, whether it's whites or blacks or something else, Native Americans as well. So are we getting Native Americans reparations? Because I don't see that in any of the bills that they're proposing. Are we going to give white people reparations? Because again, I don't see that in any of the bills that we're proposing. They were all slaves. It's a remarkable thing. It's a remarkable thing, but we hyper focus on one, but we don't look at everybody. The reason why is because everybody has some sort of terrible thing committed against them because of their race. Now, another question here is, what do you say to those that say your administration has to do more?
What do you say to those that say that's not enough, that stopping the 2,000-pound bombs the one time wasn't enough, that this administration, your possible administration, has to do more?
Well, we are doing the work of putting the pressure on all parties involved to get the deal done. But let me be very clear also. I support Israel's ability to defend itself. And I support the need for Palestinians to have dignity, self-determination, and security as we move forward and get a two-state deal done. But right now, the thing we need to get done is this hostage deal and this ceasefire deal. We need a ceasefire. We need the hostage deal.
But what do you say?
Yeah, you're not going to get either of those. You're not going to get a ceasefire and a hostage deal. But I do, look, I always give credit where credit's due. I like the fact that she sits there and supports Israel because, look, once Israel loses that support, they're going to be wiped off the face of the earth. You have a lot of countries that are surrounding them that don't want to see them exist. And we almost had a lot of the Arab nations sitting there looking at them in a positive light under Donald Trump. But, Joe Biden had to sit there and destroy that. Now, she has more word salads where she said, I will tell you I have been actively involved in, for example, meeting not only with Israeli officials, but with Arab officials to talk about how we can construct a day after scenario where we participate in ensuring those exact goals that outlined, including as part of the principles that were not reoccupation. Folks, that's an exact quote. I can't even read it myself. Let's just hear her.
Levers does the U.S. have to support Palestinians in their right to self-determination? And is it even possible as Israel's ally?
Well, absolutely. I will tell you, I have been actively involved in, for example, meeting not only with Israeli officials, but with Arab officials to talk about how we can construct a day after scenario where we participate in ensuring those exact goals that I outlined, including as part of the principles that should be applied to those goals, that there be no reoccupation of Gaza, that there be no changing of the territorial lines in Gaza, that there be an ability to have security in the region for all concerned in a way that we create stability, and let us also recognize in a way that ensures that Iran is not empowered in this.
I knew it. There had to be something in there. They try to slip it in there. There has to be some way that Iran isn't advancing. You mean the same Iranians right now that there was movement at a nuclear facility that kind of been like not really producing anything at all for a long time, that's all of a sudden having movement? The same Iranians that your administration's giving $10 billion of humanitarian aid to, that's fungible money that they could spend it on terrorism? It's wild. And Democrats can say, oh yeah, they're doing so much about the Iranians. No, they're not. So there's a lot of questions about Israel, a lot of questions about the October 7th attack on that. And they're good questions. But again, she doesn't answer any of them. It's one of the worst interviews I've ever seen. I don't want to subject you to every single clip here. But again, here she is with a rehearsed speech about her being in the middle class kid or a middle class kid.
And just get their foot in the door to be able to then engage in what will prove to be their opportunity to build intergenerational wealth. And here's my personal experience coming at that. I grew up a middle class kid. My mother was hardworking. She raised me and my sister Maya. She saved up. And it was only by the time I was a teenager that she could afford to actually buy her first home. And I know, and I identify with, I know where I come from. They can just get their foot in the door.
So if we're going to talk about like generational wealth and to correlate it, because again, this is for the black journalists NJ thing that Donald Trump spoke at. Now she's here, it looks like. Well, but isn't that the exact thing that you should be preaching to, say, other black people or Hispanics or whites or Asian, doesn't matter who you are, the fact that you were able to get out of some sort of middle class income or poverty or whatever? It's amazing that we had a black president, black attorney general, black senators, black governors, black everything. And it's like, well, if certain groups are so marginalized, then why are you not going out and speaking to them saying, hey, you know what, as a black person, this is how I did it. Or as a white person, this is how I did it. Which, by the way, I don't even think you need to do that. As a person, this is how I did it, is how you should be teaching them. But again, there's always an excuse for somebody else failing out of high school. There's always an excuse for somebody not taking their education seriously. There's always an excuse for somebody not getting a job. There's always an excuse for somebody not doing this or that. It's all an excuse. 97% of millionaires, by the way, never inherited any wealth that would have sat there and enabled them to become a millionaire. Again, that was done by a study by the Dave Ramsey team, Ramsey Solutions, on 10,000 millionaires. They studied them, their characteristics, what they do different than the general population, all of that. 97% never inherited any money that would have enabled them to become a millionaire within itself. It's one of the biggest myths out there. What did those people do then that enabled them to become a millionaire? What did those people do? Because the vast majority of millionaires or close to it were either middle income or below middle income class. There was a story of an individual that only made a few $1,000s a year and became a millionaire. What did he do? He sat there, he saved, he budgeted, he lived within his means. He sat there and didn't live a lavish lifestyle, but he became a millionaire because he invested correctly. And by investing correctly, I mean 401(k) or 403(b), 401k, Roth, traditional IRAs, those things. This whole idea again that it's somebody else's fault because of the actions that we do on an individual basis is hesitating. I'm plugging again. I really am. You guys, this what chapter is discriminations and disparities? It's chapter 10. It's about 20 pages of nothing but statistics that destroy the myths of the Democrat Party in terms of race, ethnicities. We go over household income. You want another book here that destroys all that? Read The Bell Curve. The Bell Curve, Intelligence and Class Structure in American Life. It's thick. But I'll tell you what, you'll be more knowledgeable coming out of that after reading it and stop hearing these spewing of these lies about all this stuff. So she has more things about race here. Again, it's always about race.
But polling shows that some black men, particularly young black men, are considering voting for Donald Trump, and they see him as better for the economy. What is your message to young black male voters who feel left out of this economy, and how can your economic policies materially change their lives?
So I appreciate the spirit of the question, but I'll tell you, I've often been asked this question in a way that I've had to respond by first saying that I think it's very important to not operate from the assumption that black men are in anybody's pocket. Black men are like any other voting group.
Correct. Holy crap. Yes. Yeah. They're just like any other person. Correct. His race doesn't have anything to do with anything. Holy crap. She actually said something sensible. I'm blown away. I can't believe it. She had a thought. Hey, can we clip that? Notify the newspapers.
You got to earn their vote. So I'm working to earn the vote, not assuming I'm going to have it because I am black, but because the policies and the perspectives I have understands what we must do to recognize the needs of all communities. And
I would like to point out Democrats have been in office 12 of the last 16 years, and black people are way worse off than they were before. But no, she has a plan. How that plan has developed over the last 3.5 years, well, there is no plan. And that's really what it comes down to. But don't worry, you guys. She's going to give people $6,000 for a child tax credit the first time they have a baby.
But I want to also get back to the earlier point that you made about extending the child tax credit. So part of my new approach is we need to expand the child tax credit. But I want to also get back to the earlier point that you made about extending the child tax credit. So part of my new approach is we need to expand the child tax.
They're not. The child tax credit you get right now, and I believe it's $2,000 per child. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's right? It used to be $1,000 back in the day, and then it was even like $500. Donald Trump is the one that expanded the child tax credit. What she's talking about this right here is the $6,000 that you get for you having a child, but only for the first year. The conversation is what happens to the current child tax credit that's $2,000 present that you get year over year. Guess what happened? No, that's gone. Yes, correct, Mundo. That is gone with Kamala Harris. Yes, but I'm sure glad that all you parents are getting that $6,000. Wait, you're not. That's going to lift you out of poverty, you guys. That's going to create generational wealth because you get that $6,000 that first year. Everybody knows it costs like $250,000 on average to raise a child from 0 to 18 years. Well, Kamala Harris, it's absolutely too expensive for people to work and afford childcare. My plan is about 7% of income for working people for childcare. That's not a plan, by the way.
And it is just absolutely too expensive for them to be able to work and do that. So my plan is not only about 7% of income for working people for childcare, but also we need to do better for our childcare providers and our healthcare providers in terms of ensuring that they receive the wages that they deserve based on the dignity of their work.
I really do mean this. What the hell did she just say? I really do mean this. There was, at no point did she actually come to a coherent thought. We are all now dumber. I apologize. We are all now dumber for having to listen to what she just said. It's absolutely too expensive for people to work and afford childcare. My plan is about 7% of income for working people for childcare. Yeah, folks, it was the worst interview I've ever seen. And I've seen some pretty botched interviews. She is terrible. She admits that people can't afford childcare due to her atrocious economy. She admitted it, but there's no mirror.
It is sadly the state of affairs in our country that working people often have to decide to either be able to work or be able to afford childcare. Like they can't afford childcare and actually do the work that they want to do because it's too expensive and it doesn't actually level out in terms of the expense versus the income.
I know a lot of people don't like to hear this. If you can't afford for childcare, okay, guess what? Yep, I'm right here. Guess what? If you can't afford a child, guess what? Yeah, you don't have one. Yeah, that's what the answer is. You don't have one. Okay? There's a reason some of you have asked personal questions to me. Hey, do you have any children, Brad? No. Do you want to know why? Because I can't afford one. I don't want to sit there and produce something and put it into this world that I can't afford to take care of. Somehow people get pissed whenever I say that. I said that when I went to USC for my master's program to a bunch of Democrats and liberals that were profusely crying in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected. I sat there and watched it. They were, that's not an exaggeration. I mean, hysterically crying when Donald Trump was elected president. I was the only Trump supporter in the entire room. You're damn right. I told everybody I supported Trump. I sat there because they go, we're talking about marginalized groups, right? And people not being able to afford childcare and they're working 3 jobs to do this or that. So I raised my hand and I said, well, then maybe don't have kids. And it was one of the most mind-blowing things, the worst thing anybody's ever said to them. And they couldn't believe it. They were flabbergasted. They're flabbergasted. Like, obviously, you should maybe do the research of how much it costs to take care of a kid, where you want to send them to school. Is a 529 plan even feasible for you to invest in for their college at an early age? How about opening a custodial IRA for them to see if it's actually feasible for them to become a millionaire themselves based on the investment that you start producing early on? Maybe see how much the price of diapers is and extrapolate that with the price of inflation over time. See how much maybe baby formula is, a stroller, all these things. Maybe see how much clothing is and extrapolate that by 3% over time to see what the total cost of that child is going to be. See if you maybe have to have somebody take off work to take care of that child and see how that's going to deviate away from your plan of your investments and your future opportunities that you can have. Maybe you can't afford a house right now. Well, if you can't afford a house, then how the hell are you going to afford a child? So maybe you should sit there and practice abstinence and not have a child when you can't afford it and stop blaming the government and everybody else for your actions. I went on a little bit of rant there, but I know people don't want to hear it. I know people don't want to hear it because they sit there and feel attacked because you're calling them out on the fact that they had a child that they can't afford. They don't have a damn child. If you do that with anything else, right? You do that with literally everything else. If you can't afford a car, then you don't go buy it. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know the patriots know this, but if you can't afford something, how the hell are you going to sit there and buy it? I'm not treating people as commodities, by the way. I'm just giving a very rough analogy. It's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to me where people don't have personal responsibility. It's a pet peeve of mine, if you can't tell. It's a very big pet peeve when people sit there and they blame some sort of nameless, faceless, shadowy figure out there for the things that they caused themselves. I'm not saying those other externalities don't exist. They absolutely do. But almost 95% of your life can be attributed to the situations that you made or the actions that you've made. Those actions could have started 18, 20 years ago, by the way. We have a brother in the chat, a fellow patriot, that made very rough decisions early on, criminal decisions, that ultimately is hurting and hindering his lifestyle right now when I was talking about minimum wage. Does that suck? Absolutely. But now we have to find avenues that we could sit there and work around to try to make the best of what situation we placed ourselves in. Do you know what I mean? And again, because it's talking about somebody's actions and it's making it personal, it feels tough. I've made stupid decisions. I'm not exactly I'm not holier than thou. I'm not better than any of you, by the way, nor do I think I am. No way in hell. I just have a camera and a microphone and we're hanging out here as a community. But again, there's personal responsibility and it's something that Democrats lack. And I don't want conservatives or Republicans to lack that. And by the way, it's the number one characteristic the number one characteristic, personal responsibility, that 98% of millionaires have is personal responsibility for their actions, and they don't blame other people for their faults. Now, check this out. She also says the price of groceries is too high without a thought in her head the fact that she caused it.
Is the price of groceries still too high? Yes. Do we have more work to do? Yes. And I will tell you, I do believe that I offer a new generation of leadership for our country that is about, in particular, turning the page on an era that sadly has shown us attempts by some to incite fear, to create division in our country.
Like the Democrat Party? Come on. Like the Democrat Party that we just did an hour-long episode yesterday, incite fear, threats. Folks, overall grocery prices are up 21.5% since she took office, by the way. And they're still rising. They're still going up. They haven't stopped. They haven't stopped. We lost some viewers after I went on that rant right there. I'm telling you, people feel attacked when you call out stuff. I'm not, and I don't even know if that's even applicable to anybody else. I'm just telling you what my opinion is on that. And it's not a favorable opinion, let me tell you that much. People get pissed when I talk about the fact that you shouldn't have a child if you can't afford it. To me, it's logical. There's a phrase that I learned from Ben Shapiro many, many, many years ago. Empathy in politics is harmful because when you have empathy for one group, you sit there and marginalize another group. And that's why I always have told patriots, if you're going to sit there and advocate for some sort of law, you have to see how it hinders somebody's freedoms and liberties when you implement said law. The Democrat Party will sit there and implement certain laws that will sit there and help some sort of minority or marginalized group and uplift them at the sake of and lack of betterment of another group. For example, like affirmative action would be the case. You want to sit there and allow more black people. That's one example. Hispanics, it doesn't matter what you talk about. Black people, Hispanics, Native Americans, doesn't matter what it is. Any group that's sitting there that's advancing through affirmative action. If you're uplifting them, well, then you're stopping other people from getting into said university that have the correct requirements. And by the way, that's why Harvard and other universities were sued, which guess what? We talk about in our book. The fact that Asian people had to score exceedingly higher on their SATs and ACTs than black people did to get into the same university. And that's why there's lawsuits. The question here is, are people better off now than they were 4 years ago? Watch how she dodges this one.
Are they better off now than they were 4 years ago?
So when we came into, well, first of all, let me just say it is good to be with the National Association of Black Journalists, and I thank you for the work you do and that your members do every day. It is very important that we ensure that this organization and your members always have the resources and the platforms to deliver the voices that must be heard. So I thank you for hosting me today. 4 years ago, when we came in during the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. We came in during...
Well, yeah, because the Democrats shut everything down. Remember, Donald Trump said 15 days to slow the spread. He sat there and shut everything down based on the information that he had at the time, based on the statistics, which I understand why he did it. And then he said, hey, we need to open everything back up. Please open everything back up. And the Democrats wouldn't do it.
The worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Lady, Jesus. Lady, there was, I don't know, World War I, World War II, the Korean War.
And a lot of it due in large part to the mismanagement by the former president as it relates to COVID and obviously January 6th.
He literally created Operation Warp Speed that you guys utilized. What the hell are you talking about, lady? The ventilators he made, the masks he made, were all a benefit to you guys. You just had to ride on his coattails. Don't give me this. And it brings up January 6th. Can we get a shout out to Q 1969 with the $20? Yes, 100% correct. Never apologize. I appreciate that, man. Again, but you know I love you guys, and I want you guys to I don't want anybody in my community here of patriots to feel attacked. You know what I mean? You guys know that we're a community that we just want to uplift each other. And when you don't feel like you're being uplifted, I know I'm talking about feelings here. And a lot of you like, Brad, screw feelings. But some people do feel that way when you sit there and you almost feel like you're talking about them. And Karen made a great point. Several of my friends' children's Brad's age won't have children just because they can't afford them. Exactly. I can't. It's expensive. And I want to sit there. If I'm going to bring somebody into this world, I want to sit there and give them a good life. And if I can't do that, then why would I bring them and then have them not have a life that I wish that they could have?
And we had then a lot of work to do to clean up a mess. As of today, we have created over 16 million new jobs, over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We have the lowest Black unemployment rate in generations. We have invested in small businesses, and they're to the benefit of many people, but including Black small businesses, some of the highest rate of creation of new Black small businesses in years.
It just keeps going. Those were the highlights, though, that I wanted to show you guys. She has no restriction. Just to give you a quick update, she has no restrictions on late-term abortion, by the way. There was ads that were dropped from this interview. She is stumped on a pushback from a reporter regarding gun violence. She says she owns a gun, but she wants to sit there and remember do a gun buyback program. She wants to confiscate all assault weapons, which is semi-automatic firearms, according to Joe Biden, Democrat Party. Folks, we had a lot of stuff that we weren't able to get to today. Don't worry, we'll get to it tomorrow. There is just so much news. Legitimately, and I do mean this, we could probably do, based on what I have prepared for you, probably a 4-hour show. There's so much out there that I want to get to, but we need to show that interview because I want to make sure we have it clipped and set for the record straight that she's terrible. She can't answer basic questions. She has no plan. She has no idea what she's going to do. She can't think on her feet. She talks about feelings. She makes up a bunch of lies that nobody calls her out. Notice that nobody sat there and called her out regarding the lies that she mentioned about January 6th, right? Project 2025, the fact that she has no plan, the fact that she's going to sit there and help the middle class by giving them $6,000 with the first child, even though childbirth rates are going down dramatically, which is a huge problem for our Social Security later on when everybody else retires, including myself. We're all in the same boat. So none of those pushbacks. No question about by the way, still, I'm waiting, as of all of you, still no question about the 320,000 children that were sold off into forced labor as well as sex trafficking. Not a single conversation. No conversation about 250,000 plus Americans dying from fentanyl that's pouring across the border from the Chinese and everybody else. No conversation about that. No conversation about the illegal immigrants, which I had news stories of, by the way, killing American citizens all across the country. No conversation about the fact that people, boots on the ground, still officials, even though allegedly it's debunked, officials are now coming out and saying, hey, all the way back in March, there was reports that these Haitians were eating pets. So that was also news today as well. So more reports keep coming out the fact that people are eating pets, but we're having the mainstream media, the legacy media telling us, including Republicans and conservatives, that they're not eating pets. So I don't know what to believe on that one right now. So I'm going to hold off on that, and we'll kind of see what evolves and transpires. But I really appreciate you guys hanging out today. Thank you so much for always choosing the Bald Brad Show for your morning episode. I think it's a great way to sit there and ease into the rest of the news cycle today as well, and kind of cover those different news stories and unique ones like we saw with the guy planning to kill Donald Trump in an assassination attempt with a murder for hire. So hit that like and subscribe button. Share this link with your friends and family all over social media. A lot of you guys have been sharing it on Twitter. It is greatly appreciated, helping get our voice out there to new people. And with that being said, I hope you have a lovely and blessed Hump Day Wednesday, folks. And we'll be back here tomorrow, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for another episode of The Bald Brad Show. Take care, Patriots.